Hello, and welcome to our Hustle and Know entrepreneurial experience. We are an entrepreneurship book club moving into the podcast world. My name is Julie. I'll be your host today. And joining us, we have Joseph Warren, co-owner of Financial Planning HQ, as well as Shawn Townley, entrepreneur, consultant, speaker, and geek. So today we are going to discuss the book, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, team, thanks for joining us today. First question. In one word or sentence, give me your synopsis of the book. If you were the author, what main point do you want the reader to take away from this book? So last time I stole a thunder and I went first, so y'all want to go first this time, you can. Or I will jump in. Me?
It's you, Julie.
Okay. So, basically the book is kind of what it says. The five dysfunctions of a team. So this whole book is basically about how a company, a team cannot function without teamwork. So, and it gives you five dysfunctions of why that team might not work. So, long story short, the five dysfunctions are, spoiler alert for those who haven't read it. No, it's fine. The five dysfunctions are absence of trust among team members, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. So those five things that happen are what make a team not work. So you got to do the opposite to make them work. And we'll go deeper into it as the time goes on, but that is the overall. So who's next? I know I just kind of.
Wow. So you get away with just saying what the five dysfunctions are, and that's what you get. Okay. That's cool.
I said what it was about.
For me, it's about trust, right? Nothing can happen without trust. The rest of the pyramid doesn't even really matter. So when you're working with a team, one of the hardest things to do is to get a connection. And if you can't establish that connection, and it's tough. I mean, this is set in the Silicon Valley, and it talks about bringing in someone who's a little bit more old school to kind of run the show. And you can see there clearly was no trust. And she had to really go through and establish all these different things. I mean, taking them off site when they probably could care less about trying to go off site. I mean, they were all rock stars in their own sort of way, but she had to whip them into shape to be together. And if you think about that with your own teams, even with this team right here, the three of us, I mean, if there's no trust, there's no way for us to be successful. And I hope we're going to be successful. I mean, I guess that'll pan it over time, but I think we work well together because we do trust each other. I think we trust that we're going to do the right things. We're going to do the things we say we're going to do. And I don't think that was true necessarily in this book. And I don't think it's true necessarily in life. A lot of people say, hey, we're going to get together and we're going to do all this, that, and the other. And then they ghost you, right? You don't hear from them ever again. I mean, they just kind of disappear. It's hard to get a hold of them. And so trust. For me, the one word that wraps up this book, without trust, you have nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Dang, that is function number one. That's his favorite. Okay. And Joseph, what about you?
Yeah, just jumping off of what Shawn said, I agree about trust. And I think the trust is built on vulnerability. So she talks about what politics is. And this was giving me flashbacks to some of my earlier jobs. These people, some of them really annoyed me, like for instance, Mikey. But vulnerability is how you build trust, and that's by being real. So rather than being political and saying, like, I'm going to say this because it'll make me look good, or I'm going to say this so that, Shawn will like me or Julie will like me, actually being real and being real about your mistakes and what you did well. And once you have that, that builds trust, and it creates a cascade effect, like Julie was saying, where people are okay with having conflict, saying, maybe you're wrong, Julie. And then we're all on the same page, rowing in the same direction. And that makes it so we can hold each other accountable because we're all going for the same thing. And then the byproduct of that is you get the results that the results of whatever you're trying to do, maybe make money, whatever it is, the score, you start winning more.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But it's all built on vulnerability.
No, yeah. That, for instance, Joseph, you hit that on the head. If there's anything that has probably helped my career more than anything else, it's owning up to my own mistakes and not just putting it at the feet of other folks. It takes the energy out of the room when someone's upset with you to say, you know what, my bad, I messed up, here's how I'm going to correct it, it won't happen again. Then there's no more energy that's coming towards you. You've owned it, and now you can move on. If you deny it, if you continually say, no, I could have done this, but Joseph kept tripping me up and it's his fault. I mean, why is he such a schmuck?
Mm-hmm.
That just perpetuates this no trust, no vulnerability. So Joseph, you're right on, man. Vulnerability is everything. If you can make yourself vulnerable, people will just, I don't know. It's like magic. They'll take you in and say, okay, this guy owns his own stuff, or this gal owns her own stuff. I can trust this person. And of course it goes down from Maslow from there, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's also, like you were saying, it's the accountability aspect. And also, I really like that's one of another big point is that if the team has to succeed or no one succeeds, it's either all or nothing. So I think that's a really big concept that you should keep in mind. And that I think a lot of people forget. And especially, and they say in the book, there's all these different departments. There's the sales, finance, whatever, all the different ones. And they're like, I just need to focus on my own individual goals and what I have to do and forget about the rest. But that's not how it should be. We should all know everything that's going on in everybody's department. Not down to pins and needles, but still, you need to know what's going on. Because otherwise, how are you going to be able to keep them accountable for what they need to do? You can't. So we're all a team. That's what it's about. Okay, so next question is, tell us what you liked best about the book and what you disliked about the book. And I'm sure you guys kind of already covered that, but we could maybe mix it up a little.
I'll start here. The thing I like about it is and I don't think it's any secret if you watch any of our videos, is I'd rather be told a story. I learn better with stories. I like stories. I think humans, when we communicate, we tell each other stories. When we meet on the back patio for drinks, we talk about what's going on. We tell it in the form of stories. And that's what this book does very well. I enjoy learning new things through story. That's my favorite part of this book. My eyes gloss over, and when you kind of break it down in a lecturing sort of style with bullet points, it's just yada, yada, yada. I don't like that. So that's probably my favorite part of this book. If there's something I didn't care for, I don't know. I like Lencioni. I've read a few of his books. I think he's done a good job with telling stories and getting things across. So there's not too much I don't like. It took a while for things to build, but it's not a very long book, so it didn't take long to get through. It was just kind of a serial podcast in some sense. And so that was fun for me. If there's anything I didn't like, I actually did learn quite a bit about teams, and it's helped me in my career. I read this book probably about 10, 15 years ago, and I've really implemented and kept these things going for the long haul. So I don't have a lot bad to say about this book.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I guess I'll follow because mine was similar. I'll piggyback off of that. I also agree, basically more than the first half. It was the first 3/4 of the book was just a story. That's what Shawn was saying. So it walks you through an example of this tech company, and they bring in this outside CEO to fix it. And we have the best people and the best resources. So why are we third? Why are our 2 competitors who don't have as much stuff as us more successful? So, and she basically breaks it down into it's all about a team, but they use it by telling a story. So I thought that was great. I was hooked in. I couldn't stop. I listened to it and I couldn't stop listening. I was just like, what happens next? What happens next? Does this person leave? It hooks you in. So I really liked that part. And then I liked also near the end how they, go into more deeper examples. Or I wish, though, that was actually one of my parts that I disliked, is I wish that they had given more details. So they do talk about suggestions for overcoming the dysfunctions, but they're like really brief. Maybe try this, maybe try that, and that's it. I wish that they would have gone into deeper, I guess, on how to go through the 5 dysfunctions and how to change that in a team atmosphere. Which, I mean, he does a little, but I wish it was like more in depth. So that's what I would say.
I agree with both of you that stories, they make the points a lot more powerful and it's a lot easier to remember them when it's a story. And this was a story that was easy to follow. It was my second time reading it, so this time around, I was focusing a lot on the leadership style of Catherine. And I really enjoyed just following the way she led, and I thought there were a lot you could learn from that. Like, she'll use silence. She'll let people figure out their own problems. A lot of times people, I do this all the time, like, you want to solve people's problems for them. But her tactic was just use silence and let people figure things out on their own, so they'd get the buy-in. And I don't know, I really enjoyed this book. She also led by example. Like, she was vulnerable, she was trusting, she embraced conflict, she did everything that she said she would doing. So this time I kind of read it through a different lens of leadership, and I think the stories were very powerful. Like you said, one of my favorites was when she told the story about when she was a bad manager, and she had a jerk employee who was just making everything bad, like ruining team morale, and she promoted him, and then the team morale was just destroyed, and she ended up getting fired from that. And I really thought that was good, because that was her showing her own vulnerability, which she was trying to teach the whole team, and it kind of got everyone on their side. What I didn't like, the stories were so great that you would get lost in them, but they wouldn't make points. Like, it was just a long story at the beginning, 3/4 of the book. I think they should have put a summary at the end of the chapter of what the points were, and that would have made it stick more. Well, the way they organized the book is it was just a long story, like a movie, and then a bunch of points at the end. And I think it's better to be like story point, story point, story point.
Mm-hmm.
So if I ever write a book, I'll write it slightly differently. Mm-hmm. But it is a great book. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. I do like how also, like, Catherine was learning, like she was proving her credibility to her team by admitting her mistakes and her faults. And because I think that was a lot of their perspectives, like, who's this outside person who had never worked in tech? She was from an automobile organization. Granted, this all was like fiction-ish, like
yeah,
based off of real situations, but it was like fake people examples. But still, like, nobody really like had much faith, or like, who's this outside person going to tell us what to do? But like, her opening up, was her establishing trust with her team. Mm-hmm. And I do like that she paused a lot and admitted that at one point the people called her out when she said, she was kind of blaming, like, why do you think like you're not successful as a team? And then one of the girls like said, with all due respect, aren't you like a part of our team too? And she like paused and she's like, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm also accountable, like, from this point on. Like, this is our team. So I like how they called her out on that too. So, okay, so then that leads us into our last question, which is, what is something that you learned from the book that you didn't know before? And give me an example of how you're going to apply that to your real life. Who's going?
You want me to go first this time?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if I didn't know it before, but what really stuck out to me from this book was when they were talking about how you should challenge people, but lovingly. Like, you kind of challenge them in a way where you think they have the best intentions and that they're doing the best they can, but still you call them out on stuff. So I'm going to start practicing that in my life. That's something that I don't think I do enough of. And it's kind of hard because I work with my dad and my brother. So, the last person you want to challenge or to be challenged by is your dad or your brother. I think sometimes it's tougher when it's family. Yeah,
healthy conflict. You have to have conflict.
Yeah, but in a business sentence, you need that conflict. We can't just all be going, because if you don't have it, it's like you'll keep going in the wrong direction. You'll just like never change, basically. You just keep going in the wrong direction until you're like destroyed. So next time we have a team meeting, I promise that I'm going to say, it starts with me, right? So I'm going to say, if anyone can challenge me on anything, I appreciate it, because I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to get better. And let me know if you feel the same way, if you would like me to challenge you on stuff. I'm going to bring that up during our next team meeting. And we'll see how it goes.
Love it. Love it. Okay, what about you, Shawn?
I think what this book taught me, and where I'm taking it with me going forward, is we are human, and if we don't have some sort of bond at a human level to where we feel like we can communicate. And the older I get, the simpler I want things to be. But this book really came down to communication. If you can't establish that path of communication, I mean, I guess if there's one thing I didn't like about the book from the last question is, the IT guy being English, British, and just being kind of over the top. They're trying to get with that Mikey just being, just really bitchy. I mean, she was just really passive aggressive. It was painful to listen to what's kind of going on with their minds and hearing their conversations and how much time was lost when they could have been doing great things because they had all the talent and they couldn't make it to the next level. I think the thing that I take away from that is really investing in the relationships and the communication. And when you commit, and that even amongst this team, when I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed, to say, hey guys, I can't continue to do all these things and you take things off my plate. That is critical for the success of getting through a year or a project or an experiment like kind of what we're doing now. And if you don't have those types of relationships, or if you can't communicate in that sort of way, I think that's what leads to people ghosting each other or just going away, or things just don't work out and you don't ever get to the finish line. And I hope that doesn't happen with this group. And I don't think it will, because I think we can have those crucial conversations and those types of deals going forward. So for me, the human factor always has to be the most important. Forget what the work is. The work is always going to be there. But if we can't talk to each other, tell each other stories, make each other feel better, and get each other to commit and buy into what we're doing, it's never going to work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Thanks for believing in us, Shawn. Okay, so my thing that I love, that I'm definitely going to be using from this point forward, was in regards to dysfunction 3, which is the lack of commitment. So similar, like Shawn was saying, we all have to be committed. But this suggestion that he gave in regards to overcoming the lack of commitment is called cascading messages. So he basically says, after a meeting, the team should review the key decisions that was made during the meeting and agree what needs to be communicated to the employees or other constituents about these decisions. Members of the team learn that they are not always on the same page as what they thought they agreed upon and need to clarify specific items before putting them into action. So I absolutely loved that, because I have gone through this before, where you're in a meeting and you think we all agreed on something, but somebody interpreted it differently than another team member. And you're like, no, this is what we agreed on. And then just everybody
write it down and send it out.
Exactly. Everybody forgets. So I'm definitely going to use that. I mean, I'll take like little notes, but this is kind of, I guess, why big companies take minutes too after a meeting, so that there's like physical evidence of what needs to be done. But not only that, but also before, you're not just write the minutes, but talk at the end of the meeting and say, this is what we agreed upon. Is everybody in agreement? Yes or no? And if not, let's clarify and come up with the not being afraid of conflict, with actually communicating properly. And everybody has their opinions, so that we can make it better and then move on. And it was awesome, because he said that a lot of the times, it's also about making decisions. And this is kind of similar to what they said in Rework, just make the decision now. And if you need to go back and change it, you can later. But oftentimes you realize that decision would have been the same if you had waited 2 days to make the decision anyway. So you might as well have just gotten it over with and agreed and move on, next task. And that's how you become more productive as a company. So I absolutely loved that. I'm going to start using it. Okay. Any other last points that we'd like to make? Normally, I have so much extra little tidbits I'd like to say, but this book was just so short and sweet and to the point. So you're lucky. I'm just kidding. Okay. Well, then if nobody has anything else, thank you, everybody, for joining us to our Hustle and Know entrepreneurial experience. You can find more about the book and the author in the description. Oh, gosh. Shawn hates when I do that. Just kidding. So don't forget, guys, Hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle. And we'll see you next week. Bye.